My daughter used my credit card to take $20,000 for a cruise she called a dream vacation. She smiled softly and said, "You don't really need the money anyway, Mom." I just smiled back and told her to enjoy the trip. While they were drifting at sea, I sold the house where they had been living rent-free. When they came back, 47 missed calls from the same number. Thank you for staying with me so far. Before we continue, feel free to leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing people join in from different places. Just a quick note before we move on, this story contains some fictionalized details added for storytelling and educational purposes. Any resemblance to real names or situations is purely coincidental. I'm 55 years old. I've worked as a hospital administrator for 20 years. I'm good with numbers. I notice patterns. I catch mistakes before they become problems. So when I found the envelope from a life insurance company in a drawer I never used, I knew immediately something was wrong. The envelope was addressed to me, Dorothy Ruth Coleman, but I'd never opened it. I didn't remember receiving it, and I certainly didn't remember applying for life insurance. I opened it. Policy statement, whole life insurance. Insured Dorothy Ruth Coleman. Coverage. Amount $500,000. Monthly premium $412. Payment method auto debit from checking account ending 7834. Policy effective date 11 months ago. I stared at the date. 11 months. I scrolled down to the payment history. 11 automatic withdrawals. $412 each month. Total $4,532. $4,532 stolen from my account while I worked 14-hour shifts at the hospital, while I skipped lunch to cover staffing shortages, while I took on weekend shifts to help pay for the groceries that fed 3 adults instead of 1. I kept reading. Beneficiaries. Primary beneficiary. Amber Nicole Coleman. Daughter. 100%. Contingent beneficiary. Brandon Keith Miller. Son-in-law. 100%. My hands started shaking. I pulled out the signature page, scanned the document for my signature. There it was. Dorothy R. Coleman, neat cursive, blue ink. Except it wasn't mine. I know my signature. I've signed thousands of documents, payroll forms, medical records releases, mortgage refinance papers. I know the way I loop the D, the way I cross the T in Ruth, the way the C in Coleman tilts slightly to the right. The signature was close. Very close, but it wasn't mine. Someone had forged my name. Someone had opened a $500,000 life insurance policy in my name. Someone had been draining over $400 a month from my account for almost a year. And when I died, my daughter would receive $500,000. I sat at the kitchen table. The house was quiet. Amber and Brandon were both out grocery shopping, they'd said. I had maybe an hour before they came back. I thought about the past 2 years. The way they'd moved in temporarily after Amber's miscarriage, the way temporary became permanent, the way Brandon's business meetings never resulted in income, the way my bank account drained month after month while they lived rent-free in my house. I thought about the credit card charges I'd been letting slide, the small loans that were never repaid, the way Amber would say, "You don't really need the money, Mom, you make plenty." I thought about my health scare 6 months ago, the chest pain, the ER visit, the way Amber had seemed annoyed instead of worried, the way Brandon had looked at me in that hospital bed like he was calculating something. Now I knew what he'd been calculating. How much longer I had to live, how much longer they had to wait. I pulled out my phone, took photos of every page, the policy, the signature page, the payment history, the beneficiary designation, sent them to my personal email, saved them in 3 different places. Then I put the envelope back exactly where I'd found it. I didn't confront them. I didn't ask questions. I didn't let on that I knew. Because I'd learned something important in 20 years of hospital administration. When you find evidence of fraud, you don't tip off the perpetrators. You gather more evidence. You build a case. You wait for the right moment, and then you act. That was 2 months ago. 2 months of pretending everything was fine. 2 months of smiling when Amber complained about money. 2 months of nodding when Brandon talked about his investment opportunities. 2 months of sleeping with my bedroom door locked and my phone under my pillow. 2 months of planning. I wasn't just their mother-in-law anymore. I wasn't just their landlord. I wasn't just their ATM. I was evidence. I was a liability. I was $500,000 waiting to be claimed. But I wasn't dead yet, and I wasn't going down without a fight. I need to go back to the beginning. To understand how I ended up holding that insurance statement with my forged signature, I have to understand how I became someone worth more dead than alive. It started 2 years ago with a phone call. Amber was crying. She'd just lost the baby. 6 weeks along, she said, and it was gone. She and Brandon were devastated. They couldn't afford their apartment anymore. Brandon's startup had fallen through. They had nowhere to go. She needed her mom. What was I supposed to say? No. They moved in 3 days later, 2 suitcases each and a promise that it would only be temporary. A few months, maybe less, just until they got back on their feet. I believed her. I believed everything. I believed Brandon when he talked about his new business idea, some kind of app, something with cryptocurrency. The details changed every time he explained it. He just needed a little time to get investors on board, a few meetings, some connections. It was going to be huge. I believed Amber when she said she was applying for jobs, but the market was tough. She'd get something soon. She just needed to recover first, from the miscarriage, from the stress, from everything. I believed them when they said they'd start paying rent next month, and the month after that, and the month after that. The pattern started small. Mom, can you spot me $20 for gas? I'll pay you back on Friday. Friday never came. Mom, Brandon has a meeting with an investor. Can he borrow your car? His is making a weird noise. The investor never materialized. The car came back with an empty tank. Mom, we're a little short on groceries this week. Can you pick up a few things? A few things became all things. Every request came with an explanation, an excuse, a reason why this time was different, why this time was the last time, why next week or next month everything would change. It never did. I told myself I was being supportive. I told myself they were going through a hard time. Amber had lost a baby. That kind of trauma takes time to heal. Brandon was trying. He was networking, meeting people, working on his ideas. These things don't happen overnight. But somewhere in the first year, I started to notice things. Amber wasn't grieving. She was shopping. Designer purses appeared in her closet, new shoes, expensive makeup. When I asked about it, she got defensive. Said she deserved to feel good about herself, said I wouldn't understand what she'd been through. Brandon wasn't networking. He was home, all day, every day, on his phone, on his laptop, watching television. When I'd ask how the meetings went, he'd give vague answers. Said things were moving slowly, said investors were cautious these days, said I should trust the process. I started to feel like a tenant in my own house. They'd taken over the guest room, the second bathroom, the living room, their belongings spread through every space. I'd come home from 12-hour shifts to find the kitchen a disaster, the groceries I just bought, gone the streaming services I paid for playing on the television while they lounged on my couch. If I said anything, I was being unsupportive, unsympathetic, ungrateful. Ungrateful for the privilege of housing and feeding 2 adults who contributed nothing. But I didn't say that. I swallowed it. Because they were family. Because Amber was my daughter. Because I kept thinking, if I just helped a little more, a little longer, they'd finally get on their feet and leave. The requests got bigger. Can you help with Brandon's car payment this month? Can you cover the insurance? Can you lend us money for rent at a new place? That last one gave me hope. They were finally leaving. Except they weren't. The money disappeared. They stayed. By the time I saw the pattern, by the time I understood that temporary meant forever, it was too late. They weren't guests anymore. They were occupants, and I was trapped. The memories of their temporary move-in were no longer just sad stories. They were liabilities. I needed to see the cold, hard truth in numbers. I opened a spreadsheet. I pulled bank statements. I went back 2 years, and I started adding. Rent they never paid. The house was mine. I'd bought it 12 years ago for $320,000. Put down $64,000, 20% like you're supposed to. Borrowed $256,000 on a 30-year mortgage. I'd been paying it down steadily. $76,000 paid off so far. Balance remaining $180,000. Fair market rent for a 3-bedroom house in my neighborhood, $1,800 a month. They'd been there 24 months. That was $43,200 I'd never see. Utilities, electric, water, gas, trash. I pulled 2 years of bills. Before they moved in, my average monthly utility cost was $150. After they moved in, it jumped to $500, an extra $350 a month times 24 months, $8,400. Groceries. I'd been buying for 3 adults instead of 1. Amber didn't work. Brandon's business meetings never seemed to involve income. I averaged an extra $200 a month on food, times 24, $4,800. But it wasn't just the big categories. I pulled up the list I'd been keeping on my phone. The small things, the things I told myself didn't matter. $3,200 new air conditioning unit last summer. Brandon insisted we needed the high-capacity model so he could game in comfort without overheating. I was still using a desk fan in my bedroom to save electricity. $1,200. New carpet for the living room after their dog. The dog I never gave permission to bring into my house destroyed the old one. When I asked them to pay for it, Amber cried and said I was punishing her for having a pet. $850 gas money. 20 here, 40 there. Just until payday, Mom. Payday never came. $780 car insurance. Just this month, I promise. 6 months. $130 per month. $935 Brandon's phone bill. My business line got cut off. 11 months at $85 per month. The business that never existed. $450 prescription medication for Brandon's back pain. He swore it was the last time he'd need me to cover it. I paid with my health savings account. 2 weeks later, I saw him moving furniture like nothing was wrong. $420. HOA fees they forgot to pay. 3 months in a row. I paid them to avoid the house getting a lien. $340 roof leak repair supplies Brandon promised to install himself. He never did. The leak's still there. $290 vet bills for their dog. Emergency visit for eating chocolate. I wasn't even home when it happened. They called me at work crying. The small loans added up to $5,100. None of it repaid. All of it temporary. All of it just this once. And then there was the big one. I found a credit line Brandon had convinced me to open for his startup a year ago. He promised it was just for equipment, but the balance was maxed out at $15,000. All of it gone into the same black hole as the rest. I stared at the total at the bottom of the spreadsheet. $61,500. That was just the money. That didn't count the promotion I didn't apply for because I was too exhausted from supporting 3 adults on 1 salary. It didn't count the retirement contributions I'd reduced to cover their expenses. It didn't count the vacation I'd canceled, the repairs I'd deferred, the life I'd put on hold. I looked at the insurance policy on my desk. $500,000. They'd forged my signature. They'd named themselves beneficiaries. They'd been draining $412 a month from my account for 11 months. I was worth more to them dead than alive. The numbers told a story I hadn't wanted to see. They didn't just need money. They needed me gone. And the sickest part, I'd made it easy for them. I'd handed them my house, my money, my trust. I'd co-signed loans and opened credit lines and asked no questions. They owed me $61,500 while I was alive. They wanted $500,000 when I was dead. But the money wasn't the worst part. The worst part was still coming. Sunday morning, 7 weeks before the cruise. I was making coffee when Brandon's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. He'd left it there while he showered. The screen lit up with a notification. Text message. Rico last warning. 32K by Friday or we coming to see you. The screen went dark. Then another buzz. Text message. Rico. You think we don't know where you live? My hands shook as I poured coffee. Rico. $32,000. Last warning. I heard the shower turn off upstairs. Brandon's tablet was on the couch. He'd been using it the night before for sports research. He always said he was studying betting strategies. I'd believed him. The tablet screen was dark. I picked it up, pressed the power button. Lock screen appeared. Enter passcode. I stared at the keypad. Brandon was paranoid about passwords. He used different codes for everything. But I knew him. I knew how his mind worked. I tried Amber's birthday, March 15th, 1993. 6 digits. Incorrect passcode. I tried their wedding anniversary, June 22nd, 2019. Incorrect passcode. One more try before it locked. I thought about what mattered most to Brandon. What he thought about every day. Money. I tried $500,000. The insurance policy amount. The screen unlocked. My stomach dropped. He'd been thinking about that money for so long he'd made it his passcode. I had maybe 3 minutes. I opened his apps. FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, Caesars Sportsbook, 3 crypto trading apps I didn't recognize. I opened FanDuel, checked the transaction history. The numbers scrolled down the screen. Hundreds of bets, thousands of dollars, most of them losses. I screenshotted everything, sent the images to my email, deleted the sent items from his tablet. DraftKings was worse. $50,000 loss over 6 months. BetMGM $30,000. I found a notes app, opened it, saw a spreadsheet. Total losses, 18 months, $83,000. Current debts, credit cards, $12,000. Personal loan. Mom co-signed $15,000. Rico loan shark $32,000. Total owed $59,000. I kept scrolling. Found text message screenshots he'd saved messages from Rico and another number labeled V. Rico, you got 1 more week, Brandon, then we come for what's ours. V, your wife's mommy rich, right time to make a withdrawal. Brandon working on it, got a plan, just need time. Rico time costs extra. $32,000 is now $35,000. Interest adds up. I heard footsteps on the stairs. I closed everything. Powered off the tablet, set it back on the couch exactly where it had been. Brandon walked into the kitchen, hair still wet, smiling. "Morning, Dorothy. Coffee smells great." I smiled back. "Good morning. Sleep well." "Like a baby," he said. I watched him pour coffee. Watched him scroll through his phone, probably checking those same betting apps. Watched him sit on the couch and pick up his tablet like it was the most natural thing in the world. He had no idea I'd just seen everything. $83,000 in gambling losses. $32,000 owed to people who left messages like, "We know where you live." A personal loan I'd co-signed that he'd defaulted on. Credit cards maxed out. And a $500,000 life insurance policy with my forged signature. The math was simple. They owed $59,000. The insurance would pay $500,000. Clear the debts and walk away with $441,000. I wasn't their mother-in-law anymore. I was their retirement plan. But I wasn't dead yet, and now I knew exactly what I was dealing with. I called Sandra the next morning. Sandra Phillips has been my best friend for 23 years. We met at a hospital fundraiser, bonded over bad wine and worse speeches, and stayed close ever since. She's a retired social worker. She sees things other people miss. She's been seeing things about Amber and Brandon since the day they moved in. She answered on the second ring. "I know that tone," she said. "What happened?" I told her everything. The insurance policy, the forged signature, the spreadsheet, the gambling debts, the loan sharks, the $183,000. There was a long silence. "Dorothy," she said quietly, "I tried to tell you." She had, 12 times over 2 years. Small comments that I'd brushed off. "They're taking advantage of you. You're not helping them, you're enabling them. This isn't temporary anymore." Every time I defended them, made excuses, changed the subject. "I know," I said. My voice cracked. "I know you did. I didn't listen. You were trying to be a good mother. I was being stupid. You were being human." Sandra's voice was firm. "But now you need to be smart. What are you going to do?" That was the question. What was I going to do? "I don't know," I admitted. "Confront them, kick them out, call the police." No. Not yet. Dorothy, listen to me. If you confront them now, they'll have time to react. Time to hide evidence. Time to manipulate you or threaten you or disappear. You don't need a confrontation. You need a plan. I grabbed a pen, started taking notes. What kind of plan? First, document everything. Print copies of that insurance policy. Screenshot the gambling apps if you can. Save those voicemails from the loan sharks, bank statements, receipts. Build a file. Evidence? I wrote it down. Document everything. Second, talk to a lawyer. Not next month. This week. Find someone who specializes in fraud and elder abuse. Yes, elder abuse. You're 55, you qualify. This isn't just family drama anymore. It's criminal. My hand was shaking. Elder abuse. I'd never thought of it that way. Third, Sandra continued, protect yourself financially. Change passwords. Get a new credit card they don't have access to. Check your credit report for anything you didn't authorize. They forged one signature, they might have forged others. I felt sick. I hadn't even thought of that. And fourth, Sandra said, and her voice softened, start thinking about an exit strategy. For them, not for you. This is your house, your life. They need to leave, but you need to be ready for how. How do I get ready? Gather your house documents. Everything. Deed mortgage statements, property tax records, insurance, any appraisals you've had done. Put it all in one place. If you need to move fast, you don't want to be scrambling looking for paperwork. I stood up, walked to my home office, started pulling files. I'm doing it now, I said. Good. Create a folder. Label it something they won't question if they see it. House sale emergency. I muttered, writing it on a manila folder. Perfect. Dorothy, you're going to get through this, but you have to be strategic. Emotional reactions won't help. Cold planning will. I laid the documents on my desk. Deed, mortgage statements, 2 years of property tax records, title insurance, the appraisal I'd gotten 6 months ago when I was considering refinancing. $385,000, it had said. I'm scared, I admitted. You should be. They're dangerous, but you're not powerless. You have information now, you have time. Use both. We talked for another hour. She made me promise to find a lawyer by the end of the week, made me promise to check my credit report, made me promise to stop defending them even in my own head. When I hung up, I looked at the folder on my desk. House sale emergency. 2 years ago, I never would have imagined needing something like this. Now it felt like a lifeline. Sandra didn't say, I told you so. She said, let's fix this. And for the first time since I'd opened that insurance statement, I felt like maybe I could. The health scare happened 10 months ago. I was 54 then. Chest pain at work, shortness of breath, the kind that makes you stop mid-sentence and grab the edge of your desk. My assistant called 911. They rushed me to our own ER, the same emergency department I'd been overseeing for 15 years. I knew every nurse, every doctor. They knew me. Tests, EKG, blood work, chest x-ray, CT scan to rule out pulmonary embolism. Everything came back normal. Stress, Dr. Patel said. Anxiety. Your blood pressure's elevated, but that could be white coat syndrome. Have you been under unusual stress lately? I thought about Amber and Brandon, about the rent they weren't paying, about the groceries I was buying for 3 people, about Brandon's business meetings that never seemed to result in income. Maybe, I said. Dr. Patel prescribed low-dose anxiety medication, told me to follow up with my primary care physician, told me to consider therapy, told me to reduce my hours if possible. I didn't fill the prescription. I didn't reduce my hours. I needed the income. Amber came to pick me up from the ER. She seemed annoyed that I'd scared her, kept checking her phone while the discharge nurse went over instructions. Mom, can we go? I have plans tonight. Brandon was waiting in the car. When I climbed into the back seat, he turned around and looked at me. Really looked at me. Like he was doing math in his head. You okay, Dorothy? He asked. I'm fine, I said. Just stress. That's good, he said. Scary, though. Heart stuff runs in families, right? I didn't answer. I was too tired. That night, I went to bed early, took 2 melatonin tablets from the bottle in my bathroom. I'd been having trouble sleeping, worrying about money, about Amber, about whether I was being a bad mother for resenting my own daughter. I woke up at 2 in the morning, dizzy, heart racing, room spinning. I stumbled to the bathroom, threw up, sat on the floor with my head between my knees until the dizziness passed. The next morning, the melatonin bottle was in a different spot. I'd left it on the left side of the sink. Now it was on the right. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I'd moved it and forgotten, that the stress was making me imagine things. But looking back now, knowing what I know about the insurance policy, about the forged power of attorney documents, about the gambling debts and the loan sharks and the desperate need for money, I see that night differently. 2 months after that health scare, the insurance policy was created. Forged signature, $500,000. Me as the insured, them as beneficiaries. They'd been waiting for me to die. When I didn't, they made a plan. I started locking my bedroom door after that. Moved my medications from the bathroom to a locked drawer in my desk. Stopped accepting drinks I hadn't poured myself. Stopped eating leftovers unless I'd been the one to put them in the fridge. I told myself I was being paranoid. I wasn't paranoid, I was being cautious. There's a difference between paranoia and survival. Paranoia is seeing threats that aren't there. Survival is recognizing threats that are. I was in survival mode. I just didn't know how bad it was yet. If you're still here with me, I need to ask you something. If you were in my place after that night, after everything you'd noticed but couldn't prove, yet would you confront them right away? Or would you stay silent and start looking for answers first? Let me know in the comments what you would do. And just so you're aware, before we continue, the next part of this story includes dramatized elements created for storytelling purposes. Some details may not be entirely factual. If this isn't for you, you're free to stop watching here. 5 weeks before the cruise, 3 weeks after I'd found the insurance policy, I was still gathering evidence, still documenting, still pretending everything was fine. Brandon's filing cabinet was in the dining room. He'd moved it there 6 months ago, claiming he needed a home office space. I'd offered to clear out the spare room, but he'd said the dining room had better light. Now I understood why. He wanted to keep his documents close, wanted to be able to grab them quickly if needed. I waited until they were both out. Amber had gone grocery shopping. Brandon was at one of his meetings. I had maybe an hour. The filing cabinet wasn't locked. Why would it be? They thought I trusted them. I opened the drawer labeled legal. The first document I found was a power of attorney for healthcare. My name, my address, my date of birth. Brandon Keith Miller, named as my agent, authorized to make all medical decisions on my behalf in the event of incapacity. My signature at the bottom, except it wasn't my signature. I pulled out my phone, took photos. The second document was a power of attorney for financial matters. Same setup. Brandon as agent, authorized to access my bank accounts, manage my assets, sell my property, make investment decisions. Another forged signature. I kept digging. Beneath the POA documents, I found a folder labeled NC Property Law Research. Inside were printouts from legal websites, articles about adverse possession in North Carolina, tenant rights for long-term occupants, requirements for establishing a claim of ownership through continuous occupation and good faith improvements. And at the bottom, a handwritten draft. Brandon's handwriting, a letter to a real estate attorney. The draft read, "Inquiry regarding long-term occupancy rights. Occupants have resided in property for 24+ months without formal lease, have made improvements including landscaping repairs and maintenance. Property owner mother-in-law has allowed continued occupancy without objection, potentially establishing implied consent. In the event property owner seeks to evict or sell property, what legal standing do occupants have to contest? Can occupancy, duration, and improvements made establish claim to property interest or right to remain?" My hands shook as I photographed the letter. But the worst part was at the very bottom of the folder, a sticky note in Amber's handwriting. "If we stay 6 more months and get Mom declared incompetent, POA makes that easy, the house becomes ours and no one can kick us out. Just need to hold on until then." My stomach dropped. They weren't just waiting for me to die. They had a backup plan. If the insurance scheme didn't work, if I lived too long, if something went wrong, they'd use the forged POA to have me declared incompetent. They'd claim tenant rights based on 2 years of occupancy. They'd argue they'd made improvements to the property. They'd fight any attempt to evict them. And with a power of attorney that gave Brandon control over my medical and financial decisions, they could paint me as an elderly woman losing her faculties. They could use my health scare from last year as evidence. They could probably even have me committed if they wanted to. They were building a cage around me. The insurance policy was the quick exit. The POA and tenant rights claim were the long game. Either way I lost, either way they won. I photographed everything, sent the images to my email, saved them in 3 places. Then I put everything back exactly where I'd found it. I walked upstairs to my bedroom, locked the door, sat on the edge of my bed. They weren't just trying to kill me, they were trying to erase me, make me disappear legally before they made me disappear physically. I had maybe 6 months before they filed their tenant rights claim, maybe less if they decided to accelerate the incompetency petition. I couldn't wait any longer. I had to act, I had to move fast, because if I didn't, I wouldn't just lose my money or my house. I'd lose my freedom, my autonomy, my very self, and that was something I couldn't let happen. The charge appeared at 7 in the morning. I was getting ready for work when my phone buzzed with a fraud alert. Large transaction detected $20,000. Caribbean Luxury Cruise Lines. $20,000. I opened the banking app, clicked through to the details. 2 passengers, 14-day Eastern Caribbean itinerary. Departure date 12 days from now. I scrolled through the itemized charges. Balcony suite, $9,650. Excursions package, 7 ports, $4,200. Prepaid onboard credit, $3,000. Spa services, package, $1,500. Premium beverage, package, $1,650. Total, $20,000. Charged to my credit card, without asking, without permission. I heard movement upstairs. Amber and Brandon were awake. I took a screenshot, saved it to my phone, sent it to my email, added it to the folder labeled Evidence. Then I went upstairs and knocked on their bedroom door. "Come in," Amber called. They were both sitting on the bed, laptop open, cruise website on the screen, smiling. "Good morning," I said, keeping my voice light. "I got a fraud alert on my card, $20,000 to a cruise line." Amber didn't even look guilty. "Oh yeah, we booked a cruise. Caribbean 14 days. We leave in less than 2 weeks." "Without asking," I said. Brandon shrugged. "We figured you wouldn't mind. You make good money, Dorothy. Think of it as early retirement for us. We've been under a lot of stress." "Yeah, Mom," Amber added. "You don't really need the money anyway." I stared at them, at my daughter, at the man she'd married, at the people who'd forged my signature on a life insurance policy and been draining my account for almost a year. "Of course," I said. "You're right. Have a wonderful time." Amber beamed. "Thanks, Mom. You're the best." I went downstairs, got in my car, drove to work. And the moment I got to my office, I called Robert Green. Robert was a real estate agent I'd known for 15 years. Reliable, discreet. Someone who understood that sometimes people needed to sell quickly and quietly. "Dorothy," he said when he answered. "Good to hear from you. What can I do for you?" "I need to sell my house," I said. "Fast, I have 12 days. There was a pause. 12 days? That's extremely tight, Dorothy. The average closing timeline is 30 to 45 days. Even cash buyers usually need 2 to 3 weeks for title search, and I have a cash buyer lined up." I lied. "I just need you to help me with the paperwork, and I need you to find me a real one if that falls through." Another pause. "Are you okay? Is everything all right?" "Everything's fine," I said. "I just need this done before they get back from their cruise." My daughter and her husband, they're leaving in 12 days. I need the house sold and closed before they return." Robert was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I know someone. Thomas Warren. He's an iBuyer, specializes in fast closings, pays cash, buys as close as in 7 to 10 days. But Dorothy, are you sure about this?" "I've never been more sure of anything," I said. "Okay," Robert said. "I'll call Thomas. Can you meet with him this week?" "Today," I said. "I can meet today. I'll set it up, but Dorothy—" "Thank you, Robert," I said and hung up. I sat in my office, looked at the photo on my desk, Amber at her college graduation, smiling, hugging me. That felt like a different lifetime, a different daughter. The daughter I'd raised would never forge my signature, would never steal from me, would never plan. I couldn't finish the thought. I had 12 days to sell a house, 12 days to close, 12 days to make sure that when they came home from their $20,000 cruise, they had no home to come back to. The clock was ticking. Thomas Warren arrived at 2 in the afternoon, 62 years old, former real estate attorney turned investor, 20 years buying properties in Charlotte, over 40 units in his portfolio. I handed him the folder I'd prepared 3 weeks earlier, back when I'd first started planning 2 months ago. Every document, deed, mortgage statements, property tax records, title, insurance, appraisal, showing market value at $385,000. He flipped through, nodding. You're extremely organized. Most sellers take weeks to find half of this. I'm a hospital administrator, I said. Documentation is my job. He walked through the house in 20 minutes, took notes, tested faucets, checked the HVAC. At the kitchen table, he said, "Here's my offer, $355,000, cash as is, 7 days. 7 days. I'm an iBuyer. I specialize in fast closings. Here's why it works. 1, I'm paying cash. No bank, no appraisal, no inspection. 2, you've provided all documents that saves 5 to 7 days. 3, I have same-day wire with your mortgage servicer. We order payoff tomorrow wire funds, day 4 lien releases within 72 hours. 4 occupants out of country, 2 weeks. No delays." I didn't correct him. The catch. Thomas continued, is you handle the occupant situation after closing. I change locks and post 30-day notice, but confrontation is yours. I don't do family drama. Understood, I said. He extended his hand. Deal. Contract tonight, sign tomorrow, earnest money $5,000. We shook. After Thomas left, I drove to Jonathan Stevens' office. Jonathan was the attorney Sandra recommended, elder law fraud family issues. I'd met him 4 weeks ago after finding the power of attorney documents in that unused dining room drawer. I laid out everything. Forged insurance, forged POA, gambling debts, loan sharks, the cruise, the house sale. Jonathan took notes, reviewed evidence. Elder financial abuse, he said, combined with forgery, identity theft, conspiracy to commit fraud. But critical part, we don't move until they're gone. Why, if you cancel insurance now, they get automatic notification within 24 hours. They'll know. They'll cancel the cruise. They'll stay and fight the house sale. We need them out of country. Once that ship sails 500 miles offshore, we file everything. Insurance fraud report, police report, affidavit declaring POA void, new POA naming Sandra. What about the cruise charge, $20,000? Document it, add to fraud report, but don't dispute until after they're gone. Charge declined means they don't board. $20,000. The price of getting them out of the country. One more thing, Jonathan said. When they come back and find locks changed, they'll call. Don't answer, don't engage. Let them leave voicemails, let them text. Every threat is evidence. I'm preparing a restraining order. We file the moment they threaten. How much? Retainer $6,000 covers 3 months. I wrote the check. I was spending money I didn't have to escape people who'd been stealing from me for 2 years. But I'd spend twice that for my freedom. Thursday morning, departure day. I woke at 6, listened to the sounds of packing upstairs, suitcases dragging, Amber's voice excited, Brandon's laugh. They came downstairs at 7:30, 4 large suitcases, 2 carry-ons. Bye, Mom. Amber hugged me. Thanks again for being cool about the cruise. Have a wonderful time, sweetheart, I said. Brandon shook my hand. Don't spend all our inheritance while we're gone. He laughed. I smiled. I'll try not to. The Uber arrived at 8. I watched from the window as they loaded the luggage, watched the car pull away, watched it disappear around the corner. Then I sat down and waited. At 11:30 a.m., my phone rang. Amber. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Hi, sweetheart. Mom. Her voice was tight, angry. There's a problem with your credit card. The cruise line says the charge got declined. We're at the port and they won't let us board until you call and authorize it. I closed my eyes. I'd lowered the spending limit on that card 2 weeks ago, set it just below $20,000. What's the amount? I asked, keeping my voice calm. $20,000, Mom. You knew about this. I'll call the bank right now, I said. Give me 10 minutes. We board in 45 minutes. If you don't fix this, we miss the ship. I'll fix it, I promised. I hung up, stared at my phone. This was it, the moment of no return. If I didn't call, they wouldn't board. They'd come home. They'd find out about the house sale before closing. They'd fight me. They'd delay everything. If I called and authorized the charge, they'd leave the country for 14 days. I'd have 7 days to close on the house, 7 days to lock them out. $20,000, the most expensive insurance policy I'd ever bought. I called the bank. Yes, I'm calling to authorize a charge. $20,000 to Caribbean Luxury Cruise Lines. My daughter and son-in-law. I'm aware of the amount. Please process it immediately. The representative put me on hold. 2 minutes felt like 20. Ms. Coleman, the charge has been approved. Thank you, I said. I hung up. At 11:45 a.m., I checked the cruise line app. Status boarded. At 1:15 p.m., status underway. I texted Jonathan, ship has left port. Begin phase 2. Then, at 1:47 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Amber. It was a photo, a selfie. Amber holding a bright blue cocktail. Behind her, a massive seafood tower, lobster tails, shrimp, oysters, caviar piled high on ice. The caption read, Taste of Freedom. Thank you, Mom, for treating us, worth every penny. I stared at that seafood tower, remembered my lunch last week, instant ramen eaten standing up at my desk during a 14-hour shift. I'd been saving money to pay the property tax bill on the house they were trying to steal from me. The disgust rose in my throat. Every bite of lobster they swallowed was my sweat, my safety, my future. I took a screenshot, saved it to the evidence folder, sent it to Jonathan, Exhibit G, Financial Resources and Willful Exploitation. Then I sat in my empty living room. The house was silent. No footsteps upstairs, no sports commentary blaring, no complaints about job searches that never resulted in applications, just silence. And for the first time in 2 years, I could breathe. I made myself lunch, real lunch, not leftovers. Sat at the kitchen table, ate slowly, tasted the food. The fear would come later, the guilt, the second guessing. But right now I felt something I hadn't felt in 2 years. Peace. They were gone. I had 14 days. I only needed 7. The rest was mine. At 12:30 p.m., I began phase 2. Called the insurance fraud hotline, reported the forged policy. The investigator took my statement, asked me to email documentation. I sent photos of the policy, the signature comparison, the bank statements showing 11 months of unauthorized withdrawals. Filed a police report in Charlotte. Case number 2024-FR-4782. Forgery, fraud, identity theft, elder financial abuse. Jonathan filed the affidavit of forgery with the county clerk. The forged power of attorney documents were now officially declared void. My new POA naming Sandra Phillips as my agent was recorded at 2 p.m. Called my bank. Fraud alerts placed on all accounts. Called the 3 credit bureaus. Freeze activated. Called HR at the hospital. Removed Amber from my emergency contacts. Added Sandra. Jonathan texted at 3 p.m. You're protected now. Everything's on record. Day 2. Thomas's title company began the legal review. The deed was clean, no liens except the mortgage. Day 3. Mortgage payoff statement, $180,214. Day 4. Thomas wired his funds into escrow. $355,000 cleared and confirmed. Day 5. Final walkthrough. Thomas walked through with his contractor, took notes, nodded. We'll start rehab next week. I didn't tell him I'd raised my daughter here, that I'd painted the kitchen yellow because Amber loved sunshine, that I'd planted roses in the backyard because she'd asked me to. It didn't matter anymore. I met Jonathan and the title agent at the closing office at 10. I signed the deed, signed the settlement statement. Purchase price $355,000. Minus mortgage payoff $180,214. Minus cruise charge $20,000. Minus the 11th insurance premium payment $412. Minus the startup credit line debt $15,000. Minus closing costs $4,271. Net proceeds to Dorothy Coleman $135,103. The wire transferred at 11 a.m. The mortgage lien released at 11:30 a.m. The deed recorded at 3 p.m. I handed Thomas the keys. He shook my hand. I'll change the locks this afternoon. Post the 30-day notice at 3. Have my property manager contact you if there's any issue. There won't be, I said. They're still at sea. He smiled, didn't ask. At 2 o'clock, PM Thomas changed all the locks. At 3 p.m., he posted the 30-day notice on the front door and sent copies via certified mail to current occupants. At 4 o'clock p.m., his contractor installed security cameras at every entrance. At 5 o'clock p.m., Thomas texted his property management team, "Expect confrontation on day 14. Do not engage. Call police if necessary." I drove to Sandra's house. She opened a bottle of wine. We sat on her porch. "How do you feel?" she asked. I thought about it. Really thought. "I don't know yet," I said. "Ask me in 7 days." Because they were still out there, still sailing, still drinking cocktails and taking excursions and spending my money, still thinking they'd come home to a free house and a mother who'd keep funding their life. They had no idea what was waiting. The house was gone. The trap was gone. The insurance was voided. The POA was canceled. The police had a file. The lawyer had a retainer. All I had to do now was wait. Day 14, they'd be back, and I'd be ready. I was at work when it started. 4 p.m. end of shift. My phone started buzzing. Once, twice, 3 times in a row. I ignored it. By 4:15, it had buzzed 12 more times. I picked it up. 47 missed calls, 23 voicemails, all from Amber and Brandon. They were back. I opened the voicemail app, started at the beginning. Voicemail 1, Amber, 6:47 p.m. Confused, irritated. "Mom, we're at the house. The key doesn't work. Did you change the locks? Call me back." Voicemail 2, Brandon, 6:52 p.m. Annoyance. "Dorothy, seriously. What's going on? The key won't turn. Why aren't you answering?" Voicemail 3, Brandon, 7:02 p.m. Anger creeping in. "What the hell did you do? There's a notice on the door. Something about 30 days to vacate. Call me back right now." Voicemail 4, Amber, 7:18 p.m. Panic starting. "Mom, this isn't funny. There are cameras on the house. What is happening?" Voicemail 5, Brandon, 7:26 p.m. Full anger. "We know you're getting these messages. Pick up the goddamn phone." Voicemail 8, Amber, 7:34 p.m. Crying now, the manipulative kind. Mom, how could you do this to me? I'm your daughter. We just got back from our trip and we can't even get into our home." Our home. She called it our home. Voicemail 12, Brandon, 8:03 p.m. Rage. "We just got an email from the insurance company. They suspended the policy, said there's a fraud investigation. What did you do?" There it was. They knew about the insurance. Voicemail 15, Brandon, 8:15 p.m. Threatening. "You're going to pay for this. We have rights. We live there. You can't just kick us out." Voicemail 17, Amber, 8:32 p.m. Manipulation again. "Mom, please. If we did something wrong, we can talk about it. Just call us back. We have nowhere to go." Voicemail 23, Amber, 9:40 p.m. Desperate, exhausted. "Fine, don't call us back. But you're going to hear from our lawyer. We've lived there for 2 years. That's our residence." The voicemail stopped. I sat in my office and played them all again. 47 calls, 23 voicemails, 2 hours of escalating rage and panic and manipulation. I felt a flicker of guilt. They were stranded. Amber was my daughter. Then I remembered. The forged insurance policy, the forged power of attorney, the $83,000 in gambling debts, the loan sharks, the health scare, the plan to let me die and collect $500,000. The guilt disappeared. I saved every voicemail, exported them, backed them up, sent copies to Jonathan. Then I checked my texts. 52 unread messages. One message from the property management company, 7:55 p.m. Occupants attempted entry. Police called. Officers arrived 7:20. Someone trespass warning issued. Occupants escorted off premises. Will continue monitoring. I read it twice. Police called. Trespass warning issued. The system was slow, but it was moving. I texted back. Thank you. Document everything. I looked at the 52 texts from Amber and Brandon. I didn't read them. I blocked both numbers. Then I turned off my phone. I sat in the silence of my office. Outside, the hospital continued. Footsteps, an overhead page, the distant beep of monitors. My life continued. Without them, I would hear their voices again. In court, probably. When the fraud charges were filed. When the restraining order hearing happened. But not tonight. Tonight I went home to my small apartment, locked the door, made tea, sat on my couch, and for the first time in 2 years, no one called demanding anything. No one showed up expecting dinner. No one walked into my space like they owned it. Just me. Just silence. Just peace. I woke at 5 in the morning on day 15. Couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about the voicemails, the threats, the desperation in Amber's voice. I sat at my kitchen table in my new one-bedroom apartment and opened my laptop. I'd been drafting this email in my head for 2 weeks. Now it was time to write it. Subject, final communication. Amber and Brandon. This will be my only communication with you. Do not call. Do not text. Do not come to my workplace. Do not attempt to contact me through friends or family. All acts of insurance fraud, forged signatures on power of attorney documents, financial exploitation, and credit card theft have been fully documented and filed under case number 2024-FR-4782 with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. Evidence includes forensic signature analysis, 11 months of unauthorized withdrawals totaling $4,532, $61,500 in exploitation over 2 years, $83,000 in gambling losses, $32,000 owed to loan sharks, an unauthorized $20,000 cruise charge, and 47 recorded voicemails. Detective Morrison has forwarded everything to the district attorney with recommendations for prosecution. The house was sold legally on day 7 of your cruise. You have no ownership claim and no tenant rights. A 30-day eviction notice was posted in compliance with North Carolina law. The forged life insurance policy has been voided. All premiums refunded. The forged power of attorney documents have been declared void. Sandra Phillips is now my legal agent. Credit freezes are active on all my accounts. Under North Carolina law, you face 5 to 12 years in prison for forgery insurance fraud, identity theft, elder financial exploitation, and credit card fraud. Any further contact will result in an immediate restraining order. Any threats will be added to your case file. You have 30 days to retrieve your belongings through the property management company. All retrieval must be supervised. I am not your ATM. I am not your retirement plan. I am not your insurance policy. You forged my name. You stole my money. You planned my death. I have the evidence. I have the legal system. I have my freedom. Do not contact me again. Dorothy Ruth Coleman. All future communication goes through my attorney, Jonathan Mark Stevens. I read it twice, made sure every fact was correct. Then I hit send. 5 seconds later, my phone buzzed. I'd set up filters. Any message from them would go straight to a folder labeled Evidence. I wouldn't see it, but Jonathan would have access. I blocked both their numbers. I changed my phone number. I texted Sandra, "It's done. I'm free." She replied, "I'm proud of you." I texted Jonathan, email sent, blocking complete. He replied, "Good. Don't engage. Let them spiral. Every message helps our case." I notified HR at the hospital, updated my emergency contact, made sure security had photos of both Amber and Brandon with instructions not to allow them on property. I called my bank, confirmed all fraud alerts were active, confirmed new account numbers, confirmed only Sandra had access. Then I sat in my quiet apartment. No voicemails, no texts, no threats, just silence. And for the first time in months, that silence felt like victory. She came the next day. I was at my desk, 2 p.m., reviewing budget reports, trying to focus on normal work. Then I heard her voice in the hallway. "Where is she? I need to see my mother." I looked up. Amber was there, 20 feet away, hair disheveled, eyes red. She'd slipped in behind a visitor group during shift change. She saw me, started walking faster. "Mom." I stood up. My office door was open. Colleagues were in the hallway, patients in nearby rooms. "Amber, you need to leave." "You can't do this." Her voice was loud, shrill. People were stopping, staring. "Brandon's facing arrest warrants. We don't have a single dollar. Do you want to see your daughter on the street?" Security has been called. She kept coming into my office doorway. "You have to drop the charges. You have to call them and tell them it was all a misunderstanding. We can fix this. We'll pay you back. Leave now or you'll be arrested. No, she screamed it. Brandon is going to prison because of you. I'm going to have a criminal record. You're destroying our lives. Why, Kia? She lunged forward, grabbed my arm. Her fingers dug in hard enough to hurt. You're going to call the DA right now. You owe me that I'm your daughter. Then security was there. 2 officers. They'd been stationed nearby after my call to HR yesterday. Ma'am, you need to come with us. Amber didn't let go. She's my mother. She can't do this to me. Mom, please. Brandon's talking about turning on me to get a better deal. Please. The desperation was real now. Not manipulation, pure panic. The officers moved in, separated us. One took Amber's arm firmly. Ma'am, you're trespassing. You need to leave immediately. This is insane. The gambling debts, the loan sharks, they were going to kill Brandon. We didn't have a choice. Mom, you don't understand. I looked at her, my daughter. Even now, at the very end, she was making excuses. I want her removed, I said. Amber's face twisted. I hate you. Do you hear me? I hate you. The officers escorted her out. She was still screaming. Down the hallway, into the elevator, until the doors closed and the sound finally stopped. I stood there shaking. The entire floor had seen it. Nurses, doctors, patients, visitors. Everyone had seen. My supervisor appeared. Dorothy, come to my office. I followed, sat down, explained everything, showed her the restraining order petition, the police case number. This incident adds to the case against her, she said. Security called police. They're filing another report. I finished my shift somehow, drove home, walked into my apartment, locked the door, and then I broke. I sat on the floor and cried, not quiet tears, deep wrenching sobs. 2 years of holding everything together. I called Andrew, the therapist Sandra had recommended, left a voicemail. He called back 20 minutes later. I need help, I said. Tell me what happened. I told him everything, the insurance, the POA, the house, the confrontation. When I finished, he was quiet. Dorothy, what you're feeling right now is grief, not guilt. Grief. For the daughter you thought you had. For the relationship that never existed. Let yourself feel it. It hurts. It's supposed to. That means you're human. That means you loved her. But loving someone doesn't mean letting them destroy you. I made an appointment, 2 days from now. I'd protected myself, changed the locks, sold the house, filed the reports, but I hadn't protected my heart. That would take longer. The legal system moves slowly, but it moved. Week 3, restraining order hearing. I sat across from a judge and explained why I needed protection from my own daughter, the forged insurance policy, the power of attorney documents, the $20,000 cruise charged without permission, the threats on voicemail. The judge granted a 1-year restraining order, 500 yards minimum distance, no direct or indirect contact. Week 4, insurance investigation complete. Forensic analysis confirmed forged signature. Fraud charges recommended to the DA policy voided from inception. The insurance company refunded all premium payments from the 11 months since the fraudulent policy was created. $4,532. I deposited it into my savings account that same day. Week 5. Detective Morrison called. Needed to interview me in person. I met him and Jonathan at the police station for 2 hours. He reviewed every document, the gambling debts, the health scare, the loan shark voicemails. This is one of the clearest cases I've seen, he said. I'm forwarding everything to the DA with a recommendation for prosecution. Week 6. Brandon was charged. 3 counts of forgery, 2 counts of fraud, 1 count of identity theft, all felonies. Bail set at $50,000. He couldn't post it. Week 7. Amber was charged. 1 count of conspiracy to commit fraud, 1 count of accessory to forgery. The DA believed she'd been manipulated by Brandon but had knowingly participated. Bail set at $10,000. Someone posted it. I didn't ask who. Week 8. Plea deals offered. Brandon would plead guilty to 2 counts forgery and fraud in exchange for 18 months in prison. Amber would plead guilty to 1 count of conspiracy in exchange for 6 months with probation possible after court-ordered counseling. Do I have to testify? I asked Jonathan. No trial, he said. Plea deals mean it never goes to court. You can submit a victim impact statement if you want, but you don't have to appear. I'll take it, I said. That same week, Thomas texted. The house had been rented to a young family, 2 kids. Rent covered his mortgage and expenses with profit. Good tenants. I didn't know how to feel about that. I did the math one more time. The final accounting. Direct exploitation over 2 years, $61,500. Loss from selling below market value, $30,000. Fraudulent cruise charged $20,000. Legal and professional fees, $8,000. Therapy costs after insurance, $1,200. Total cost of my freedom, $120,700. What I got back net proceeds from the house sale, $135,103. My original investment in the house was $197,600. Net loss on the house itself, $62,497. Brandon's gambling debts, the ones that started all of this, were $83,000 with $32,000 owed to loan sharks. The $500,000 insurance payout would have cleared those debts and left them $417,000 to start over. I was worth more to them dead than alive. Andrew asked me in session, "Do you regret it?" I thought about it, really thought. I spent $120,000 to escape a murder plot, I said. I'd pay it twice. The legal system moved slowly. My healing moved slower, but both were moving forward. 6 months later, I sat in Andrew's office for my 24th session. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "I'm okay," I said, and I meant it. The first sessions had been brutal, unpacking 2 years of exploitation, 2 years of making excuses for people planning my death. Andrew had been patient. He'd helped me separate guilt from grief. The guilt was misplaced. Opening my home to family wasn't a character flaw, it was compassion. The grief was real, justified. "You're not grieving the daughter you had," Andrew said once. "You're grieving the daughter you thought you had, the relationship that never existed." That broke something open, made me realize I'd been mourning a fantasy. And the anger. Andrew was clear about that. Your anger is justified. They forged your signature. They planned your death. Being angry isn't a character defect. It's sanity. We worked on boundaries. No is a complete sentence, Andrew said. You don't owe anyone an explanation, not even family, especially not family who's proven they'll hurt you. It sounded simple, it wasn't, but I was learning. My relationship with Sandra deepened. Dinner every week. We talked about the house sale, the trial therapy, but also normal things, books, movies, plans. She never said I told you so, just I'm proud of you. I started new routines, Saturday morning hikes near my apartment, woods and creek, an hour listening to birds feeling sun on my face, a book club at the library, 8 women meeting monthly to discuss novels and drink wine and laugh about things that had nothing to do with trauma, and pottery. I'd signed up on a whim, loved the feel of clay, loved shaping something from nothing, loved that if I messed up I could smooth it out and start over. The money sat in investment accounts now, retirement funds, safe, stable. I lived in a modest 1-bedroom apartment, small kitchen, good light, quiet neighbors. I wasn't rich, but I was secure, and I was mine. There were still hard days, days when I'd see a mother and daughter laughing together and feel the grief again, days when I wondered if I'd overreacted. I asked Andrew about that once. "Do you think I overreacted?" He looked at me steadily. "Dorothy, you protected yourself from people planning your death. You didn't overreact. You survived." That helped, most days. I thought about Amber sometimes, wondered if counseling was helping, if she understood what she'd done. Then I'd remember. The forged signatures, the insurance policy, the power of attorney, the health scare. The daughter I was mourning had never existed. The real Amber, the one who'd participated in planning my death, was a stranger. I could mourn the daughter I'd wanted, the relationship I'd hoped for, and I could protect myself from the daughter I'd actually had. Both things could be true. Andrew had taught me that. "You're doing well," he said at the end of our session. "How about spacing appointments once a month instead of weekly?" I felt a flutter of anxiety. Then let it go. I think I'm ready. I walked out into late afternoon sunlight, drove home, made dinner, sat with a book. No one called demanding anything. No one showed up expecting me to fix their problems. No one made me feel guilty for existing. I wasn't healed. Healing isn't a destination, it's a process. But I was healing. And for the first time in years, I belonged to myself. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning. Subject, I need advice. Margaret, age 62. Found my story through a support group for family financial abuse survivors. My son and daughter-in-law have been living with me for 3 years. They don't pay rent. They've maxed out credit cards in my name. Last week I found documents I didn't sign. I'm scared. Did you ever feel guilty? How did you find the courage? I read it 3 times. Then I started typing. Dear Margaret. Yes, I felt guilty. I still do sometimes. Guilt is the tool they use best. They know we love them. They know we'll sacrifice ourselves because that's what family does. But love is not self-destruction. Love does not require you to fund your own harm. Document everything, every expense, every charge, every conversation. The evidence will matter when you're ready to act. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. That voice telling you to check documents, to lock your door, to hide your medications, that's not paranoia. That's survival. You deserve to be safe. You deserve to have money in your account. You deserve to sleep without fear. The people who truly love you will understand boundaries. They will respect your limits. They will not ask you to set yourself on fire to keep them warm. The people who don't, they were never your people. It will be hard. You will doubt yourself. You will wonder if you're overreacting. You will hear their voices telling you that you're selfish, that you're cruel, that you're abandoning family. You are not. You are protecting yourself. There is a difference. Get a lawyer. Get a therapist. Get a friend who will tell you the truth. You cannot do this alone. Change your passwords. Get a credit freeze. Open a new bank account. Move your documents somewhere safe. Small steps, one at a time. And when you're ready to act, do it quickly and completely. No half measures, no second chances, no negotiations. Freedom has a price. For me, it was $120,000 in 2 years of my life, but I would pay it twice, because the alternative was worse. You asked how I found the courage. I didn't. Courage found me when I realized I had no other choice. Courage came when I understood that staying would kill me. You have more strength than you know. You've survived 3 years. You've recognized the pattern. You've reached out for help. That takes courage. Now take the next step, and the next, and the next. You are not alone. I'm rooting for you. Dorothy. I hit send, closed my laptop. 6 months have passed since that day. My birthday came and went quietly. I was 55 when I sold my house. Now I am 56, and I have finally found my life. Amber is in counseling as part of her probation. I hope it helps. Not for me, for her. Brandon has 13 months left on his sentence. I don't think about him much anymore. I think about the house sometimes, the yellow kitchen, the roses in the backyard, the daughter I raised there, but mostly I think about the future. The pottery class I signed up for, the hiking trip Sandra and I are planning, the quiet mornings in my apartment with coffee and sunlight and no one asking me for money. I'm 56 years old. I work at the same hospital. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment. I have less money than I did 2 years ago, but I have something I didn't have before. I belong to myself now, and that's worth everything I lost. Looking back at my story, I see what family drama stories really teach us. This is one of those grandma stories that starts with love and ends with survival. Don't be like I was. Don't ignore the warnings. God gives us instincts for a reason. When something feels wrong, trust that voice. God doesn't ask us to destroy ourselves for others. He wants us safe and free. These family drama stories we hear aren't rare. They're everywhere. My story is just another where guilt becomes a weapon. Real grandma stories about manipulation teach us that love without boundaries isn't love at all. These grandma stories are warnings we should heed. My advice: document everything. Protect yourself legally and financially. Boundaries aren't betrayal, they're survival. People who truly love you will respect your limits. God walked with me through the darkest valley. He'll walk with you too. If my story can help even one person recognize the patterns in their own family drama stories, then sharing was worth it. Final note. This content contains dramatized storytelling for educational purposes. Some details are fictionalized, but the lessons and messages are entirely valuable. If this style isn't for you, that's okay. Please seek content that better suits your needs.